Geographically straddling Europe and Asia, today's destination is a real bridge between East and West. Because of its location on the old Silk Road, it has been a major trading hub for centuries, as well as a place of religious and cultural diversity. Surrounded by 3 seas and set between 2 mountain ranges, the sources of the ancient Tigris and Euphrates rivers are found in this country. Both traditional and modern, Turkey offers up the best of both worlds. After visiting Istanbul with its majestic religious buildings, we'll head for the Turkish capital of Ankara, sitting high on the plateaus. We'll then go to explore the volcanic region of Cappadocia before crossing the Konya Plain and ending our tour in Ephesus, an amazingly well-preserved city dating back to the ancient Greek period. Come join us on our all-inclusive tour to Turkey. Neighboring the Balkans and the Middle East, Turkey has coastlines on both the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. It's a country of highlands and mountains, in which the first cities appeared over 4,000 years ago. Turkey is almost exclusively Muslim, but as it is run by a secular government, the principal manifestation of this religious identity is the ubiquity of the mosques. There are also large Kurdish and Arab minority groups. Turkey has a population of 75 million, over a quarter of which are under 15 years old. While 1/3 of Turks are involved in agriculture, its inhabitants are urbanizing rapidly. The country is also in the midst of developing its tourism industry. Proud of its past as the center of the Ottoman Empire, Turkey welcomes visitors with open arms. Our itinerary begins in the modern part of Istanbul. Nevizade Street is a great place to get started. The entire district has been named after this street. It's known for its vibrant nightlife. This street is always full of people of all ages who sit on the terraces to sip a cold beer or have a quick bite to eat. After a snack in Nevizade, we head for the Blue Mosque, one of Istanbul's most celebrated attractions. Its real name is the Sultan Ahmed Mosque, and it's the starting point for Turkish Muslims beginning their pilgrimage to Mecca. With traditional Islamic architecture, it's considered the last great mosque of the classical Ottoman period. The Blue Mosque was built to rival the Hagia Sophia, a Christian basilica right next door. The Sultan wanted to prove that Ottoman architecture could be just as magnificent as Christian architecture. As it is a mosque, we must remove our shoes. Our guide distributes plastic bags to hold them. Inside, over 260 windows fill the building with light. The floor of the massive prayer hall is covered with exquisite carpets. Held aloft by 4 marble pillars and supported by 4 semi-domes, the main dome sparkles 43 meters above our heads. The domes are adorned with over 20,000 ceramic tiles. Much of the ceramic detailing is in blue, from whence comes the mosque's nickname. Not far from the mosque is the Topkapi Palace, which was the main residence of the sultans for over 4 centuries until the mid-1800s. Today, it's a museum dedicated to Islamic art, surrounded by many gates and fountains. The Imperial Gate dates back to 1478 and is covered in marble. Once used for the palace's defense, the gate is enormous. The central arc leads to a palace courtyard. Golden Ottoman calligraphy adorns the upper part of the gate. Passing through, we find ourselves in the outer palace gardens. The Imperial Rose Garden is now open to the public. The Gate of Salutation is richly decorated with religious inscriptions and monograms of sultans. This was the gate reserved for officials and foreign dignitaries. It is flanked by 2 tall towers, examples of the Byzantine influence on the palace architecture. Heading toward the Grand Bazaar, we cross a state-of-the-art tram line made by Canadian company Bombardier. The German fountain sits in the old Byzantine Hippodrome. This Oriental-style monument was a present from German Emperor Wilhelm II on his 1898 visit to Istanbul. The first market constructed on this spot was built out of wood in 1461. After being destroyed by a fire, it was rebuilt in stone and brick. For centuries, the Grand Bazaar was the biggest covered market in the world and was only ousted from the title by the sprawling shopping malls of today. With its 65 avenues, it's like a city of stores, also offering such services as a post office, a small mosque, several banks and tea rooms, and a Benistan, which is a sort of enormous convergence of antique dealers. But the market isn't just for tourists. Many Istanbul residents come here to do their shopping as well. We walk past pottery, hookahs, and Turkish tea services. There's so much to see in the Grand Bazaar and its surrounding area that we'll finish our visit here tomorrow. After window shopping to our heart's content, we head for our hotel, located in the historical city center. Hotel Aziyade is a 4-star establishment with 100 stately rooms where comfort and elegance come together. Our guide checks us in and distributes the keys. The common areas are inviting. And the rooms are fully equipped with air conditioning, satellite TV, and Wi-Fi. Rest assured, the bathrooms are clean and modern, with no sign of the infamous Turkish toilets. This morning, we'll continue our exploration of Istanbul, one of the world's great metropolises with its 15 million inhabitants. We head back to the Grand Bazaar, where the shops are always open, and stop off at a traditional sweet shop. One of the oldest sweets on the planet is the famous local specialty, Turkish Delight, made out of sugar, starch, and rosewater. We can't resist this local delicacy. Turkey is the #1 global producer of dried fruit, hazelnuts, and chestnuts, so it's no surprise that we see entire stalls of them. The shopkeepers let us smell and even taste the brightly colored spices, including curry and black pepper. The Mediterranean climate is ideal for growing fruit. The fruit we see most often on Turkish tables are olives, citrus fruits, and grapes. Our guide tells us that Turkish cuisine combines flavors from Europe with those from the East and shares characteristics with Greek and Lebanese food. The dishes rely heavily on fish and lamb, and the Turks love their desserts. A few well-known dishes originating in Turkey are rice pilaf, baklava, and yogurt. We leave the bazaar to head for the Hagia Sophia. Erected in the year 360 on the site of an ancient Greek temple, it fell victim to fires and pillaging. It was reconstructed and then converted to a mosque when the Ottomans conquered the city.
Jusqu'en 1925, c'était une mosquée. C'est pourquoi, au cours des siècles, on a ajouté des tours qu'on appelle des minarets.
The Hagia Sophia has had a strong influence on Western Orthodox architecture, but also on Catholic religious architecture and some Islamic mosques as well. The guide tells us about the rich materials that were used in construction, including Greek marble and Thessalonian granite, adding to the grandeur of the structure. It's estimated that the Hagia Sophia was built in only 5 years and that over 10,000 workers contributed to its construction. Marble columns from temples in Rome, Athens, and Thelos were used here. The largest column is estimated to weigh 70 tons. Hagia Sophia is also renowned for its Byzantine icons. Instead of destroying them when the church became a mosque, the Sultan had these images plastered over. The building is crowned with an immense central dome that rests on 4 arches, supported by 4 pillars. Many sparkling mosaics, more recent than the icons, but also Byzantine, have been preserved. Hagia Sophia is a beacon of Byzantine ingenuity and a prime example of that culture's architecture. The time has come to test out our sea legs. The Bosphorus isn't really a river. It's a 30-kilometer strait that cuts Istanbul in 2, separating the European part of Turkey from the Asian part. The European side of Istanbul includes the historical city center, while the Asian side is mainly residential and is less visited by tourists. We are dazzled by the luxurious pavilions of the Dolmabahce Palace, which replaced the Topkapi Palace as the residence of the sultans who wanted a new European-style home. The result was this breathtaking Baroque palace. This is where Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, the founder of the Turkish Republic, died in 1938. 2 suspension bridges allow inhabitants to cross from one side to the other, along with the sea buses and ferries of the Istanbul public transport system. We admire the fabulous houses, often secondary residences of wealthy Istanbul families or former palaces that are now the property of the Turkish government. There isn't just one fortress guarding the entrance to the Bosphorus Strait, but rather 2, one on each side. As it connects the Black Sea to the Mediterranean, the strait is a very busy place. Our lungs full of fresh air and our minds full of images of the Bosphorus Strait, it's time to head back to dry land. The sea air has worked up our appetites. We lunch at Sandal Balik Evi, a restaurant frequented by tourists and locals alike, which specializes in traditional Turkish dishes. The menu offers seafood and grilled fish, fresh from the sea. To get a good start on the journey to our next destination of Ankara in Anatolia, we'll spend the night in Bolu. To get there, we cross the Bosphorus into Asia. Koru Hotel is situated in the forest. Our stay here is very peaceful. Once our rooms are assigned, we can relax in the sunny lobby. The rooms are spacious and well-equipped, with all the conveniences we have come to expect from a 4-star hotel. It makes us feel right at home for our first night in Asia Minor. In the Turkish capital of Ankara, we start our day at the Museum of Anatolian Civilizations. We are indeed in the region of Anatolia, also known as Asia Minor, which encompasses most of the Asian part of Turkey. Exhibited at the museum are a rare and precious collection of relics from civilizations that mark the history of Asia Minor. The items that we see here come from nearby excavation sites. They are arranged in chronological order from prehistoric times to the beginning of the 20th century. Frescoes, statues, and everyday objects show us the evolution of Turkey's inhabitants over the millennia. After a satisfying visit to the museum, the father of modern Turkey awaits. The remains of Mustafa Kemal Atatürk are in Ankara, in the mausoleum that was built in his honor. After the First World War, he united the Turks under a single independent secular republic. Lining the vast public square are the mausoleum, a museum containing Atatürk's personal belongings, and a library. It's a lively square filled with both Turkish and foreign visitors. Next stop, the salt lake of Tuzgulu, and then to Cappadocia, a mountain range formed by ancient volcanoes. As its name suggests, the water of the salt lake has an extremely high salinity. No plants or fish can survive. While it is quite shallow, at no point deeper than 2 meters, the lake covers a vast area of 1,600 square kilometers. In summer, the water evaporates almost completely, revealing a salt deposit on average 30 centimeters thick. In winter, the salt dissolves underwater from the abundant rain. This natural cycle is used to extract salt from the lake. Tuzgulu produces an astounding 70% of all the salt consumed in Turkey. The blue sky is reflected by the waters of the lake, producing an almost blinding light. But we'll have to store up that light to face our next destination, a real underground city. To protect themselves from Arab invaders and Byzantine persecution, the Christians of the Cappadocia region hid their homes underground. Carving into the volcanic rock, they built the region's subterranean cities, made up of narrow corridors and many rooms with various purposes.
Et après, ils vont décider d'écouter leur instinct pour agrandir cet espace. C'était des blocs de granit. Alors on les taillait sur place.
The city that we'll visit today is over 7 stories deep, plunging over 85 meters into the earth. The city is aerated with a great chimney carved into the rock. The main entrances were kept secret, hidden by large round stones that were rolled in front of the doors. In this dark labyrinth, we consider ourselves lucky to have someone guide us through the passages. For claustrophobics, it's a good idea to wait outside. After the 12th century, when the Byzantine Empire officially recognized Christianity, the underground cities were slowly abandoned.
Ça change. Alors, si vous décidez d'acheter...
We get back on the road, glad for the light of day shining on the fertile Cappadocian plains. Here in the geographical center of Turkey, Cappadocia has a history that goes back to the Neolithic period 8,000 years ago. Millions of years ago, volcanoes dominated this area. Lava from the eruptions formed the unique natural landscapes of the region, leaving behind imposing mountains. Cappadocia has been attracting visitors for centuries, and now it's our turn. We'll explore it tomorrow. We're staying at Hotel Mustafa in the city of Urgup tonight. It's a 4-star establishment not far from the region's main attractions. On arrival, we're served a welcoming drink in the great tradition of Turkish hospitality. And of course, now is the time to learn the Turkish word for cheers, şerefe. While our guide takes care of registration, we take advantage of the welcoming bar. Each room is nicely furnished and comfortable, but the night will be short. We're up at dawn tomorrow for an extraordinary expedition over Cappadocia. We're still half asleep when we meet up in the early morning, heading for a very special destination. The Cappadocian skies. We watch as the crews prepare for our flight in a hot air balloon. And now the moment we've been waiting for, getting into the basket under the huge balloon, nervous and excited. And up we go. The ground gets further and further away beneath our feet. As our altitude increases, our eyes are open to the beauty that surrounds us, the green fields contrasting with the sand-colored hills. In complete safety at 1,000 feet above the ground, our pilot guides us to the best views of the extinct volcanoes below. The first rays of sunlight reveal Cappadocia at its best. We float deftly around some strange-looking rock formations. They're called fairy chimneys and are sculpted by natural processes of erosion. Some of these cone-shaped rocks are riddled with windows. We'll find out more about them when we're back on the ground. We take a good look around for our last minutes in the air. And hold our breath as the ground gets closer. And here we are. We celebrate our unique expedition with champagne. Back on the ground, we'll go see those famous fairy chimneys up close. They are topped with a hard layer of basalt that covers the more fragile volcanic rock called tuff. Millennia of water and wind erosion have resulted in their strange spire-like shape. And because tuff is easy to carve, the inhabitants of the area use the lower ones as houses, with the higher ones being a perfect place for storage. There are many sites in Cappadocia that have fairy chimneys. Some barely poke out of the ground, while others are tall and thin. Some of them seem to defy the laws of gravity. Once used and maintained by the region's inhabitants, these caves are abandoned today because of government regulations. Our guide tells us that water damage has made the holes bigger and that many fairy chimneys are on the brink of collapse. As we leave the site, a local artisan stand awaits us, where we can try on hand jewelry handmade here in Cappadocia. Turkish carpets made of wool, cotton, and silk have fascinated the world for centuries. An incredible amount of work goes into their production. The Anatolian technique consists of knotting silk threads in a repetitive action that requires intense concentration and patience. Silk is extracted from the cocoons of silkworms. The fibers are loosened in hot water and then spun into thread. A single cocoon can produce between 1,000 and 1,500 meters of silk. Spun together, the fibers form an unbreakable thread that is used to weave the carpets. And what happens to the silkworms in the cocoons? Mercifully, the breeder kills them with the steam before sending the cocoons to the carpet maker. They sacrifice their chance of becoming a butterfly, but instead are turned into art. If we fall in love and end up buying the carpet of our dreams, it will be delivered to our house when we return. No need to lug it around throughout the trip. It's a good idea to test them out before buying. We continue our visit in Gorem Valley, a UNESCO heritage site extending over 32 square kilometers. The valley is an open-air museum where we'll get a closer look at the fairy chimneys we flew over this morning in the hot air balloon. The region's Christian population dug churches out of the tuff of the surrounding mountains over a millennium ago. While their architecture alone is quite extraordinary, these churches are also full of unique frescoes painted right onto the rock walls. The Church of St. Barbara is adorned with red frescoes and patterns rich with symbolism. Some of the Gorem frescoes are well preserved, but others have been damaged by humans, weather, and the passing of time. We are asked to refrain from using flash photography. But this site wasn't strictly dedicated to prayer, it was also a residential area. Digging into the soft rock, the inhabitants made stairs, built-in storage areas, and even furniture. The collapse of the front part of the Karanlık Church has left a large part of it visible from the outside. The two-story frescoes in the inner sanctuary, dating back to the 11th century, are almost impeccable. It's said that there are hundreds of churches that haven't been discovered here in the valley, hidden under the tuff. Here we are in the small village of Uchisar, a huge rock face that has been on the caravan route since ancient times. Here as well, the houses are carved out of volcanic rock. The fairy chimneys have been made into houses, each one accommodating several families. The internal temperature of these residences remains constant year-round. Hanging from the trees, blue eyes seem to be peering at us. These are the Nazar Bancak, an Anatolian amulet used to keep away the evil eye. We head for the local market, where we see a wide selection of scarves and jewelry. And here are the Nazar Bancak, again in various forms. In fact, the symbol is all over Anatolia. It's part of the regional culture. For the less superstitious, the market also offers delicate fabrics and other beautifully made creations. We'll end our day with a celebratory meal. Uranos Sarikaya is a restaurant carved from the rock. The tables are laid out on descending tiers before a stage, and the jovial atmosphere is contagious. The restaurant specializes in Anatolian cuisine with seasoned lamb's meat and delectable aromatic rice. Suddenly, the stage lights up. A woman demonstrates the rudiments of Oriental dance. Carried away by the rhythm, some of us even get up to dance, but not in front of the camera. This morning, the hotel staff takes care of our baggage as we prepare to explore some of Anatolia's historical sites. In the region of Konya, we'll visit Hierapolis and Pamukkale. But first, we'll stop at the caravanserai of Agzikarahan. In the Middle Ages, merchant caravans on the Silk Road needed safe places to stop for the night. The stables and rooms of the caravanserai were enclosed behind a rock wall and heavy iron door. A line of these caravanserai were built, each one 40 kilometers away from the last. Why? That's the average distance that a camel can travel in one day. An inscription on the wall tells us that this caravanserai was built in 1231. When the Europeans discovered other routes to China in the 16th century, the Turkish caravanserai were slowly abandoned. We stop for a quick lunch and then get back on the road to Konya. We're driving along the edge of the vast Anatolian plateau. It's called the breadbasket of Turkey due to the large amount of grain harvested here. Because the land here is so fertile, it's been inhabited for thousands of years. Our next visit will bring us back in time. On the side of the hill is the ancient city of Hierapolis. Built by the Romans, this city has existed for over 2,000 years. Inside the city walls are houses as well as traditional Roman buildings such as temples and baths. These main buildings line a road that stretches from one end of the city to the other. At each end, an imposing gate of 3 archways marks the entrance to Hierapolis. Next to the ruins of the temple to Apollo, we see the northern gate, still well preserved. The Domitian Gate. The necropolis is one of the largest in Turkey. There are many tombs of different types from many different eras. Neighboring Hierapolis, the enchanting site of Pamukkale welcomes us. Over an area of 4 kilometers, hot springs saturated with calcium salts flow from the mountain. As the water flows over the cliffs, the calcium forms sparkling tiered basins. Because of its smooth appearance, Pamukkale is called the Cotton Castle. To protect this unique site, visitors are required to remove their shoes. We're eager to put our bare feet into the warm water. The baths of Hierapolis use the hot springs to treat respiratory disorders and rheumatism. To this day, the water of Pamukkale feeds the pools in the area, including the one next to our hotel. The Lycus River Hotel reflects the colors of Pamukkale and its design with creamy whites and aquatic blues. In addition to its efficient and friendly staff, the hotel has a beautiful terrace next to an outdoor thermal pool and is surrounded by tranquil gardens. The rooms are bright and relaxing. A modern, well-equipped bathroom completes the picture. We have a peaceful night in store for us under the moon of Pamukkale.
Discovery World, showcasing exclusive premier content from around the globe. The hottest, fastest, wildest, bravest, tastiest, most bizarre, most in-depth, and most dynamic shows on TV, all in spectacular high definition. The best of what we do lives here, only on Discovery World.
Our day begins in Aphrodisias. From here, we'll head to ancient Ephesus, to Izmir, and finally to Selçuk. Aphrodisias is an ancient Greco-Roman city. Many items discovered at the site, including statues, busts, and friezes, are exhibited at the museum. But of course, the highlight of the visit is Aphrodisias itself and the monuments that still stand there. We'll start our tour at the Sebastian, a temple dedicated to the goddess Aphrodite and the Roman emperors. The majestic tetrapylon rests on 16 columns. Dating from the 2nd century, its name means 4 doors in Greek. Situated at a crossroads, this monument was the pilgrim's entrance to the sanctuary of Aphrodite. With a capacity of 8,000, the remains of the great theater used for gladiator fights is impressive. But the stadium for athletic competitions is truly amazing. With 22 rows of seating, it could hold 30,000 spectators. This is the best preserved stadium of its size out of all of the Mediterranean countries. Continuing on our way, we enter the Odeon. This building held 1,700 spectators and was used for concerts and Senate meetings. This is not a pool in the middle, but rather the orchestra pit, which is now filled with rain instead of musicians. The temple to Aphrodite was at the center of the city. All that remains of it are 14 of the original 40 columns that once surrounded it, and the foundations. The temple was destroyed by an earthquake and a flood in the 4th century, which also damaged a large part of the city. And off we go, heading to Izmir for a glimpse of its leatherworking industry, a pillar of the Turkish economy. The Kursalar company has been making leather garments for 65 years. All of its products are made with Turkish lambskin, renowned for its softness and suppleness. We take in a short fashion show of a few designs. The quality and cut of the clothes are impeccable. And then we get the chance to try on a few of our favorites in the boutique. We leave with our purchases, heading for Ephesus. The best preserved ancient city in Asia Minor, Ephesus flourished under the Greeks and then the Romans. We recognize a few of the buildings during our visit. The Prytaneum was the site of religious ceremonies, official receptions, and banquets. A sacred flame representing the heart of Ephesus burned here constantly. The main streets of the city are still here. They were once lined with fountains and monuments. For our visit to Ephesus, we are lucky to have a specialized guide. Thanks to her detailed knowledge of the site, we don't miss a thing, and especially not the remains of one of the 7 ancient wonders of the world, the Temple of Artemis, goddess of fertility. Many of the structures in this city are famous throughout the world, including the Fountain of Pollio, which would not be standing were it not for the efforts of the site's archaeologists. Walking through the city, we have a look at the remains of what were once rich homes. Here, the sumptuous Fountain of Trojan, built in honor of the Roman emperor of the same name, is currently being restored. Close to the Scholastica Baths stands the Temple of Hadrian. We take in the magnificent facade of the Library of Celsus. This is where the manuscripts were preserved, protected from humidity and extreme temperatures behind double walls. These structures are still standing after centuries of unrest, including the Arab invasions, the Great Seljuk Empire, the Crusades, and the Ottoman Wars. However, in the 15th century, the plague decimated the population of Ephesus. The surviving Ephesians built the modern city of Selçuk. Protected by an imposing citadel, the inhabitants of modern Selçuk mostly make their living from agriculture, with one of their most important products coming from their grapevines. In a quiet, shady garden is the entrance to Hotel Callahan, a warm and friendly establishment adapted from a 100-year-old farmhouse built in authentic Anatolian style. In this homey and intimate setting, we are served local specialties accompanied by wine from the region. The rooms are simple and cozy, with everything we need to feel right at home. Our windows open onto the gardens that sweeten the air around the pool. On the terrace, we can indulge in a glass of wine, content for now to watch the cherries and olives ripen on the trees. Roses and jasmine add the perfect finishing touch to this picturesque scene. Turkey is a real treasure trove full of wonders from both Europe and Asia. It's overflowing with extraordinary places that are definitely worth exploring, including the majestic Bosphorus Strait and the lunar landscapes of Cappadocia. The country's inhabitants carry on its age-old traditions, and they're more than happy to share them with us. But Turkey's also a modern and secular democracy, which is becoming more and more open to visitors looking for adventure. See you again soon on the next Joy of Touring.